Okay, so we're going to be talking about the latest antics concerning Chad Johnson and Cameron. Now, these two individuals have history in the past, and that history is, and what they history is in the past has been refueled again. Apparently, it started, well, it started even before um, on the episode of It Is What It Is when they talked about Chad Johnson's interview at Stephen A. Smith, where he pretty much told Stephen A. Smith that he had an enhancement down his, all right? And it was just one of those, and it left Stephen A. Smith speechless. That's the first time I ever saw Stephen A. Smith speechless. And he had that look on his face like, this is just way too much information. I didn't even know you was going to travel down this rabbit hole, but whatever. All right. So Chad Johnson talked about that. And on the episode of It Is What It Is with Cameron and Mace, that baby talked about this part of the interview. And, Mace didn't want any parts of it. He was just basically laughing it off, saying like, okay, he's just laughing it off. But Cameron, he not only he didn't talk about it, he talked about his involvement with Chad Johnson as far as getting Chad Johnson as a as someone that wants to be on their program. And he talked about how, look, when Cameron and Mace were in the ground floor of It Is What It Is, and there was like 2 months in the air, and when they had the ball running, the one thing they did was seek out ex-athletes or ex-personalities out there that wanted to be part of It Is What It Is. And Cameron talked about his conversation with Chad Johnson, trying to, I guess, recruit him to It Is What It Is. And at that time, Chad Johnson isn't the same Chad Johnson like he is on Nightcap, all right? Or like he is on reality TV. At that particular time, and I remember it, Chad Johnson was bouncing around as far as a media personality. He was bouncing around on the NFL Network. He had a ESPN and Fox Sports 1. And out of those three networks, I think ESPN had some longevity as far as relationship with Chad Johnson, but it wasn't really going anywhere, okay? Now, Chad Johnson, he's very entertaining. He's very funny. His knowledge of pro football is top notch. But Chad Johnson's name, and this is my humble estimation about Chad Johnson. I could be totally wrong about this, but there's a reason why those networks chose not to have or put money behind Chad Johnson, because Chad Johnson does not have that name like a Shannon Sharpe that comes from that, or a Travis Kelce, or the Kelsey brothers, or the Manning brothers, okay, or a Deion Sanders, a Troy Aikman. When you mention football greats, Chad Johnson, even though people don't really consider Terrell Owens a football great, it's just his presence alone would probably give him better opportunities on those networks than Chad Johnson. And Terrell Owens has a lot of baggage, and even these networks didn't even want to fool with Terrell Owens, but Terrell Owens his name had more cachet than Chad Johnson, and there's a reason why. All right, now Chad Johnson is no stranger to bad media press. He assaulted his former fiance, girlfriend, the headbutting incident. So that, a lot of those networks shied away from that. But, out of all of them, ESPN had some longevity with Chad Johnson, even though it wasn't going nowhere. Chad Johnson had to go on ESPN 2, all right, to survive. All right. Now, he's no stranger in the reality world. His new girlfriend was used to be girlfriend. She's no stranger on reality TV. I guess he had a storyline with her on reality TV. He had some longevity, some legs there. But, there's a reason why, he just didn't pick up fast in sports entertainment. All right. And at that particular time, Chad Johnson wasn't tied to anybody. He was just a journeyman. And, Cameron and Mace felt like, hey, Chad Johnson would do them would do them great numbers on It Is What It Is. Now, Cameron talked about how he was talking to Chad Johnson, and Chad Johnson said, well, just speak to my lawyer. And Cameron said, but I'm talking to you right now. Why would I want to speak to your lawyer when I'm talking to you right now? Now, I'm not that big, to give you guys my expertise on that. It can go either way. I understand Cameron's point of view. Like, look, I'm speaking to you. Why you don't want to work nothing out, or just talk about the opportunity, or maybe that's a normal procedure where you want to sign this person to do a couple of shows. Instead of talking to the person themselves, you talk to their agent. So I can't make heads or tails of that. But Chad Johnson, and this is the part where you have to be the bigger person in the room. And I'm not saying Cameron wasn't the biggest person, wasn't trying to be the biggest person. And I'm not saying Chad Johnson wasn't trying to be the biggest person. But what I am saying is, sometimes when you look at opportunities and the way how these opportunities come upon you, sometimes you have to be the bigger person. They didn't follow normal protocols. So sometimes you just entertain the conversation and you just take it from there. Now, I'm pretty sure Cameron wasn't asking for a definite yes or no, or was you going to do it or not. But I think Cameron would have been cool saying, well, let me, let's exchange numbers or, emails or whatever, and I'll get back with you later. All right? And let me think about it. And if that was something Chad Johnson wanted to do, he could have thought about it, ran it by his agent, and then they can, go from there. All right? Or just, hey, look, thought about it. I don't think that would have been my cup of tea. I appreciate the opportunity. And, I think they would have been cool either way. I think Cameron wouldn't been offensive by it. I don't think Chad Johnson would have been offended by it. But the way how that ended left a bad taste. Pause in Cameron's mouth about Chad Johnson. Now, Chad Johnson did get an opportunity to be a host on Nightcap. I don't know if this is 1,000% true. I heard Chad Johnson mention this on social media as well as on Nightcap itself, that he's a partner of Nightcap. He's just not he's just not the help. He's just not a guest host. He's a partner. He's a full-time partner on Nightcap. I don't know the contracts beyond their relationship with Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson. I don't the contracts or anything like that. But it's not like Shannon Sharpe is disagreeing with him. But I'm just throwing that out there. All right. Now, would he gotten that same type of opportunity on It Is What It Is, where he would have became a partner to It Is What It Is? I don't think so. Because at that particular time, Cameron and Mace was, doing it out of the mud. They was putting their own money up, and then it blew up. They got sponsors. It Is What It Is kind of reminds me of $1 Million Worth of Game. All right? And it also reminds me of a show a while back called Everyday Struggle with DJ Academics and Joe Budden. It's less explosive than Everyday Struggle, but it's entertaining, it's informational, and it's funny. It is what it is. And, I listen to it and watch it. It's a great show. And Nightcap is a great show. At the end of the day, I think how it's set up now, Chad Johnson is a partner at Nightcap. He's doing extraordinary numbers with Shannon Sharpe at Nightcap. It is what it is. Mason Cameron, they're doing their numbers. Two great shows. How that situation was handled could have been handled better. But hey, like I'm gonna steal the title from the show. It is what it is. It worked out the way it worked out. The stars were in line, things of that nature. All right. But apparently, Chad Johnson Cameron said some not so friendly things about Chad Johnson when Stat Baby broke out the story about Chad Johnson's enhancement story when he was relaying it to Stephen A. Smith on his platform. All right. So he got back to Chad Johnson, and Chad Johnson on Nightcap talked about, he got love for It Is What It Is. It started off okay. Then he said, hey, I'm outside. Matter of fact, next week, early Monday, I'm coming to Harlem. You know where I'm at. You know what restaurant I'm going to attend. I'm dropping the Addy. Hey, meet me there. Catch me outside. That's basically what Chad Johnson said on Nightcap. He could have cleaned it up, but he felt kind of touched up by what Cameron said about him on Cameron's platform. And he just poured gas on a fire already burning. That was another opportunity where Chad Johnson could have been the bigger person in the room and said, okay, that's how Cameron feels. Hey, I don't want to entertain that. I'm moving on. And that's all I want to say about that. I got love for those guys. That's all I want to say about that. Sometimes you got to be a professional. Sometimes you have to be a big boy. And sometimes, it may look on social media that you've given up. It may look to the people in the comment section, want to troll you and say, oh, you didn't want that heat from Cameron. The kitchen was hot and you didn't want to go into the kitchen. Whatever. Chad Johnson got bigger fish to fry. He's doing great on Nightcap. Just be the bigger person in the room. But he said that, and you obviously know that's going to get back to Cameron. And Cameron talked about Chad Johnson's past, talked about him, beating up on women, headbutting, his former girlfriend. And here we are. Okay. Jim Jones also got involved with this. I think that was, Charlemagne the God being messy, mentioning Cameron. And, now Jim Jones wants to fight Cameron for $10 million, blase. All right. I don't think it has anything to do with Cameron and Chad Johnson, but Cameron's name has been in the news with Chad Johnson. And hey, look, I feel like both shows. I feel like Shannon Sharpe should have cleaned it up for Chad Johnson. He probably did. I don't know, or maybe pull Chad Johnson to the side and say, hey, on this episode, hey, I know there's something going on with you and Cameron. My advice to you is not even entertain it. And maybe Shannon Sharpe said that to him. But hey, Chad Johnson is his own man. All right. And that could be the same over there. It is what it is. I do think Stat Baby was, stroking the fires about it. A lot of people feel like she was, misleading Cameron, whatever. But still, these are grown men. I feel like they didn't handle this like adults. These two guys acting like they're like 19, 20 years old. Cameron's acting like he's like 19, 20 years old, same as Chad Johnson. And, there's Eagles are obviously bruised, and there was some hostility. There was something that was carried from Cameron when he was trying to do It Is from the beginning stages, and he felt like Chad Johnson didn't believe in them. And it even made it worse when Chad Johnson went on the news and talked about how he wants to be better than it is what it is. Okay. And that even put more salt to the wound. All right. And to me, I feel like these two individuals could have handled this a lot better. I felt now it's back on Cameron. Obviously, I told you what Cameron said. Obviously, it's back to Chad Johnson. To be honest with you, it should be back to Chad Johnson. I'm pretty sure, and I didn't see Nightcap last night. I don't even know if it was on the air last night. But it'd be interesting what Chad Johnson is going to say, particularly about the latest thing, what Cameron said about him. To me, I don't think Chad Johnson should entertain this. Say, hey, look, start giving them their flowers. Be the bigger person in the room. Say, hey, look, I got nothing but love for those guys. Obviously I was trolling on my response. If he wants to apologize, he can apologize. But, he doesn't really have to apologize, but I would smooth it over for an apology. And who knows, maybe when he goes to Harlem, him and Cameron would be in the restaurant, shake hands, and be men about it. I remember the same thing happened to, oh my God, with, I want to say it was, I don't know if it was Stephen A. Smith or Shannon Sharpe. They said some things on social media about, oh my God. It was actually Shannon Sharpe. Oh, and oh my God, that comedian. I see his face. He played Day Day on Friday. I can't think of his actual name. But you guys know who I'm talking about. He said some things about Shannon Sharpe, particularly when Shannon Sharpe had Cat Williams on, and Cat Williams was, talking about certain comedians and things like that. And him and Shannon Sharpe got into it, and I think it was it was around Super Bowl weekend last year, a year ago, and they patched things up, and he even appeared on his show, and the rest they say is history. I don't know if Chad Johnson was trying to secretly do something like that with Cameron, where, Cameron goes to the restaurant and they sit down and talk like men. Maybe, it's a moment where they would record their interactions there and patching things up, and that's something that Cameron can take to his platform, and Chad Johnson can take to his platform over there at Nightcap, and, settle it like men, and try to settle their differences and things of that nature. Okay. I don't know if that was a strategy Chad Johnson was heading towards, taking copying and pasting what Shannon Sharpe had with, dang, dude, I forgot that guy's name. He's very funny comedian. He did Day Day on the Friday series, all about the Benjamins with Ice Cube. Oh, man, got a show on Netflix. Oh, my God. I got his face, but I can't think of his name. It's one of those crazy things. But it's one of those things that just popped up in my head. I normally do research about stuff I talk about. And unfortunately, it wasn't on my mind when I was doing the research. All right. But anyway, you get my point. And I'm pretty sure people in the comment section are going to say his name. And time this video is uploaded, I'm going to remember the person. But anyway, it doesn't really matter about the name of the comedian. My thing of it is, look, I feel like both of these guys, cooler heads, could have prevailed. And both of these guys could have handled this a lot better. And I feel like everyone is in agreement with that. I don't think nothing's going to be pondering. I don't think there's going to be no fight. These guys are past the age of 30. All right. And, they're old men now. Maybe when they were younger, it would have probably become to fisticuffs. But, these two guys, they don't want those type of problems. Neither one of them want those type of problems. They have great platforms they should be proud of. Someone said something in the comments section when I was watching someone else's video talk about it's amazing how we as black people, we divide and conquer. But when you talk about other, like media podcasters, white media podcasters, or white media, social media influencers, or sports influencers, there's no beef like this. They don't, and if there is beef, they kind of handle it they both talk about it on their separate on their into their IPs or whatever. And then, it doesn't escalate to this point, is the point that I'm making. Okay. And, hey, look, I don't want to get on this soapbox. I feel like we, and particularly on Black History Month, this doesn't look good for Black History Month, but to me, I feel like we as African Americans, we have to, hey, look, man, we got to do better. We really do have to do better. Not everything is a divide and conquer moment. There's really no beef between these two individuals, and there's nothing that a simple conversation can't resolve. But in order to have a simple conversation, both parties need to be at the table. And if one person doesn't want to be at the table, fine. You just move on. Okay? There's no need to keep talking about it. There's no need to keep dwelling about it. Obviously, this individual don't want to do no business, don't want to communicate with you, and you have to be an adult and just say, okay, cool. Wish we could have handled this. Wish we had an opportunity to squash this, but obviously we don't have that opportunity. I'm moving on. And that's how it should have been done. All right. For this to escalate, and I think it is what it's been going on for 3-4 years. This is from Cameron's perspective, either you forget about it or try to make some contact with Chad Johnson. And maybe Chad Johnson didn't want to talk to him, or maybe Cameron didn't communicate it to Chad Johnson how he felt about that. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. So, yeah, I don't think nothing's going to happen when there's going to be an end to this. Neither one of them don't really want to fight one another. And they move on. All right. I think the ball is back in Chad Johnson's court. And it's up to Chad Johnson if he wants to just say, you know what? I'm too old for this. If Cameron took something what I said out of context, which, to be truthfully honest, you kind of implied you wanted to fight Cameron, okay? Now, I know there's going to be fans on both sides of the equation that's going to disagree with what I'm going to say, but look, you're kind of implying to Cameron, hey, I'm outside. If those problems are like that, hey, I'm outside. I'm dropping the Addy and everything, okay? Whatever. I feel like Chad Johnson, I'm pretty sure he's going to respond to what Cameron said recently about him being a woman beater, and it's up to Chad Johnson just to say, hey, look, I know he's got issues with me. I don't have no issues with him. I would love to have the opportunity to go on his platform, or he come to my platform, or we come to each other's platform and talk about it live and in effect. I have no issues with him. I'm not trying to fight him. I just want to, whatever's there, I want it squashed. And And we'll see what happens from there. Now, when Cameron can either respond or not. Okay. But sometimes you have to throw the olive branch out. Neither one of these guys are not budging. They're standing on their square, and they're not passing the olive branch. Whatever. All right. But that's all I got for this video. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Deuces.